When you're sitting at a desk and the next big project is a color-critical piece of work, the temptation to buy a monitor that promises studio-grade performance is strong. But the fear of spending a fortune on a display that ends up looking good on paper yet feels out of sync with the rest of your workflow is very real. I've spent the last few weeks testing a high-end 32-inch mini LED on a real-world creative setup, and I want to give you a clear picture of whether that price tag translates into everyday value. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First, let's talk about the kind of decision you're making. This isn't a monitor you buy because you like the way a movie trailer looks on a glossy screen. It's a tool for photographers, video editors, and designers who need confidence that what they see now is exactly what they'll see when the file is exported. The main hesitation many professionals have is whether the extra hardware like a built-in colorimeter and 2304 local dimming zones actually saves time and money, or just adds a layer of complexity they'll never use. I approached the ASUS ProArt PA32 UCXR with those questions in mind, setting it up next to my existing 27-inch IPS and using it for a mix of raw photo editing, DaVinci Resolve color grading, and a bit of 3D modeling. The first thing you notice when you power it on is the brightness. The mini LED backlight can push close to 1600 nits in peak HDR mode, which is more than enough to see the nuance in Dolby Vision content and to judge highlight roll-off in high dynamic range footage. In a bright office with windows, that extra punch means you can keep the blinds half closed and still read subtle shadow detail without cranking up the monitor's gain. For HDR video work, the ability to switch between Dolby Vision, HDR10, and HLG on the fly is a genuine convenience. I could load a test clip in each format and instantly compare how the monitor interpreted the metadata, something that would otherwise require a separate reference display. Color accuracy is where the built-in colorimeter really starts to matter. The unit supports both self-calibration and auto-calibration via software, and it can also work with external tools like Calman or Lightspace if you already have a calibrated workflow. After a quick 5-minute auto-calibration, the monitor reported AE below 1 across the 99% Adobe RGB and 97% DCI-P3 gamuts. In practical terms, that meant the reds in a portrait matched the values I saw on my reference printer, and the blues in a cinematic grade stayed true to the director's intent. For anyone who spends hours tweaking curves, that level of consistency can shave off at least an hour per project, because you're not second-guessing whether the monitor is lying to you. Connectivity is another area where the value proposition becomes clear. 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports deliver 90 W of power, allowing you to charge a laptop, drive a 4K 60 video stream, and send a full-resolution signal all through a single cable. That declutters the desk and reduces the number of adapters you need to keep on hand. I paired the monitor with a MacBook Pro and a Windows workstation, swapping between them without unplugging anything. The dual USB-C also meant I could plug in a peripheral hub and keep my mouse and keyboard cables tidy. For a freelance photographer who moves between client sites, that plug-and-play flexibility can be a day-saver. Now, the monitor isn't without trade-offs. The biggest practical drawback I ran into was the size and weight. At 32 inches, the stand is robust but takes up a significant footprint, and the whole unit feels heavy enough that you need a second pair of hands to reposition it. If your desk is modest or you like to rotate monitors often, you'll need a dedicated VESA mount, which adds extra cost and effort. The panel's high peak brightness also comes with a modest risk of blooming in very dark scenes. Some users notice faint halos around bright objects when the local dimming zones transition. In my test clips, the effect was only noticeable when I pushed the black level to absolute 0, something most editors rarely need to do. Another consideration is price. This isn't a budget upgrade, you're looking at a 4-figure investment. The question becomes whether the built-in calibration, HDR versatility, and Thunderbolt 4 hub justify that expense compared with a 2-monitor workflow that uses a separate colorimeter and a lower-cost HDR panel. For studios that already own a color management suite and need a single, all-in-one solution, the convenience factor can be worth the premium. For hobbyists or occasional freelancers who only need accurate sRGB output a few times a month, a more modest 27-inch IPS with an external colorimeter could deliver a similar ROI. Who should buy this? If you're a professional photographer or video editor who works in Adobe RGB or DCI-P3 on a daily basis, need reliable HDR playback, and value the ability to calibrate on the fly without pulling out a separate device, this monitor hits the sweet spot. It also makes sense for small post-production houses that want to standardize a